We're holding towards the end of Perek Lamed Ches, Be'ezer Hashem. We'll finish it. We're still talking about the topic of cherem, the idea of a communal ban that can affect other people. And we were going through different stories in Tanakh about where we see the idea of cherem coming into play. We saw last week the story of Yeshua, in the story in Sefer Yeshua when Achan illegally took from the booty of Yericho. He violated the cherem. They put him to death. We saw the story of Pilegesh Begiva when the people of Anshe Yavish Gilad didn't come to the communal gathering when they made the big macha against Binyamin when they were put to death. Now we're going to see another story of cherem, which is going to have a little bit of a happier ending somewhat. Basically, a little bit of the background. This story involves Shaul HaMelech. In the time of Shaul HaMelech in the Sefer Shmuel Aleph, basically what happened was there was an ongoing war between Bnei Yisrael and the Plishtim, and the war had sort of resulted in somewhat of a quagmire. It just kept fighting, and no one was really winning or losing. It just kept going and going and going, and everyone was getting disenchanted with the whole thing. One day, Yehonosson, the son of Shaul HaMelech, decided, me and my buddies, we're gonna go out and we're gonna do another attack, another raid on the people. Hopefully Hashem will help us and we'll be matzlech and something will happen. They went out in the middle of the night, whatever, and they went to the Plishtim, and Hashem made a nace, and the Plishtim got all scared because they heard different noises and they started scattering about, whatever. And then Shaul HaMelech saw that the Plishtim were getting scared, and he said, "Oh, now's the time. Hashem is with us. We should go attack the Plishtim, and we'll be able to defeat them." So Shaul HaMelech says, "Okay, we're going to go fight the Plishtim. We're going to make a gzera that nobody eats." I think the Mefarshim speak different explanations. Either because if you don't eat, so you're more focused, right? So you don't get distracted by food, so you're focused on the fighting, or maybe it has to do with like tshuva, like it's like a fast day. They're doing tshuva so that they'll be matzliach. Okay, so that's what we're holding in this story. Says the Medrash, you should know about the power of cherem. Shaul ben Kish. Come and see from the story of Shaul ben Kish, the Melech Shaul. Shehichrib, he made a cherem. Sheatzumu kol ha'am mikatoin va'ad gadol. That the entire nation, from young to old, everyone should fast. Shnema, it says in the pasuk, Orur ha'ish asher yochel lachem. Cursed is the man who eats bread. Yehonosson lo yishama. Yehonosson, his son, did not hear that they had made a communal cherem, a communal ban on eating. V'ochal ma'at dvash, and he ate a little bit of honey. V'noharu edav, and his eyes became, like we just started, and his eyes became enlightened. Shenemar v'atarana edav, and his eyes became enlightened. Meaning, the Medrash says that Yehonosson didn't know that Shaul made a cherem that you're not allowed to eat, and instead he ate a little bit of honey. The Yalkut Shemaini in the Sefer Shmuel brings down this Perek with a little bit more detail. It says he was walking with his walking stick, and he came across a honeycomb, Yaris Dvash. Right, that's why Rabbi Yehonosson Eibeshitz, his Sefer is called Yaris Dvash because of this story, Yaris Dvash. He was walking with his walking, he saw some honey, so he took his walking stick and he dipped it in the honey, and then he put it next to his mouth and he ate it. And the Radal points out, Mistava, he used the top of the walking stick, not the bottom of the walking stick, which is like dirty because it hits the ground. The top, which is in the air usually, so it's cleaner. Al Kapanim, so Yehonosson went and he ate from this honey, and his eyes became lightened up. Shenemar v'tarana einav, his eyes became lightened. Okay, remember the Radal makes the shtickle about that both of his eyes became lightened because if you eat honey and mine mesika, so it makes your eyes enlightened. It gives you yishuv adas in the context of the Gemara in Yuma Pei Gimel, where it's talking about eating on Yom Kippur, which the amount that you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur is what's called yishuv adas. The amount of food that gives you yishuv adas, that's why you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur. Page Shin Mem Hey. Fine. So Yehonosson ate a little bit of the honey, and then they went to fight. And Shaul HaMelech saw that the Plishtim were chasing after the Jews. And he realized that the Jews had violated the cherem. I don't think it says this explicitly in Psukim that they started losing the battle, but that's what it seems like over here from Pirkei Blazer. It sounds like they were losing the battle, and because they were losing the battle, Shaul realized that Hashem is not with them because they must have done something wrong, so he assumed there was somebody must have violated that cherem that he made that no one's allowed to eat. So now the question is, okay, who violated the cherem? We'll take care of him, and then now we'll be able to be batzliach. So the lashon of the pasuk is that Shaul said whoever it is whoever was the one who ate, he's going to be put to death, even if it was my son Yehonosson. And everyone gave awkward stares, and nobody said anything because it really was his son Yehonosson. But he didn't know that right when he made that bombastic statement. V'ra'a b'shnei masor shvatim. So Shaul went and he saw the 12 shvatim, the 12 tribes. Meaning similar to the story we had last week, where they looked at the choshen and mishpat of the Kohen Gadol, of the breastplate, which has 12 gems for each of the tribes, and he saw shekol shevet v'shevet shaya ised dvar mitzvah avnei magia ira. Each and every shevet that was doing mitzvahs, that was doing what they're supposed to, so its stone was lit up. And each shevet that wasn't doing, that had averas in its hand, its stone was not lit up. And through that oracle, through those means, through that Shaul Melech was able to figure out that it was the tribe of Binyamin that had violated the cherem. Someone from Shevet Binyamin, which of course Shaul himself is from Shevet Binyamin. And he cast lots. Are you looking for the remote control? We just have it here. We have it here. Yeah.
Right on my face. It's fine.
And he cast lots. V'nilka Shaul v'Yehonosson. And Shaul and Yehonosson were caught in the lots. Meaning it came out that Shaul, the way it was broken up. It was to Shaul's family. Yeah. So it came out that it was Shaul's family. Yehonosson and Shaul were caught in the lottery. That came out that it was and then became apparent to Shaul that Yehonosson was the one who violated the cherem, because he didn't violate it. He himself didn't violate the cherem, so it must have been Yehonosson. And Shaul took out his sword in order to kill his son. It says, he said, I'm going to kill the person whoever violated the cherem, and if not, Hashem is going to do that to me. Hashem is going to kill me. If I don't carry out what I said, then I'm going to kill the person who violated the cherem. So in a way, the Radal points out that in a way, really Shaul sort of cursed himself that I should also be killed. He said, because if I don't carry out the punishment against the person who violated the cherem, I should be killed, right? And the Radal points out that sword that Shaul Melech took out, that he was going to kill his son Yehonosson with, that was the sword that Shaul Melech ended up killing himself with. In the end of Sefer Shmuel Aleph, Shaul ends up killing himself, right? So it was his own sword that he killed himself with. So that sword that he was going to go and use that to kill his son, he ended up killing himself. Fine. So Shaul was about to go kill his son Yehonosson. Now, you have to understand that Yehonosson was a very interesting character. Yehonosson was a beloved person. The people, Mamish, loved Yehonosson. He was a very popular figure, right? And it's interesting because Chazal also praised Yehonosson that he was really supposed to be the next king after Shaul, so his son Yehonosson would take over. But Yehonosson was so attached to David HaMelech, to David, his friend, that he even agreed that David should be king over himself.
Why? Because he knew what
Shmuel's. I'm not sure.
And he held by the Navi, or for some other reason?
I'm not sure if it's because he knew of the Nuvu or not, but you see that in the fight between his father and David, he took David's side. Mm-hmm. So Shaul was Yehonosson was a very popular character. So the nation said to Shaul HaMelech, Adinenu HaMelech, our master the king, Shgogai, it was a shaygig, it was a mistake. Yehonosson didn't really mean to eat food on purpose in order to violate the cherem that he said no one's supposed to eat. It was a shkaga, it was a mistake.
When did they meet?
Don't kill him.
Yehonosson and David.
What?
Yehonosson and David. When did they meet?
When did they meet? I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly.
It was after he was, what's it called?
I mean, they're brothers-in-law also. Because
Yeah,
David married his
after-
sister.
After the, what's it called, the anointment, the kind of anointment? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was afterwards, and he probably knew about it. Probably, of course he knew about it. So it was like a friend of the next king.
Possibly. It's not clear exactly when people knew about the nevuah that David's supposed to be the king. I'm pretty sure it wasn't so. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't. It's not so clear who knew and when they knew about it.
I'm talking about Shmuel David taking him and what's it called, anointing him.
Yeah.
Everyone knew about it.
Everyone knew about it.
I don't know if everyone
I don't
knew
know.
about it. I know.
I'm not sure.
I know.
Al so Shaul's ready to about to go kill his son for violating the cherem, and the people said, "No, no."
Shaul knew.
Yeah. And the people say, "No, no, don't kill him. It was a mistake. He didn't. He wasn't trying to violate the cherem." The Olah of Korban Olah, and they brought on his behalf a Korban Olah, because of this shegeg that Yehonosson did, and they davened for Yehonosson, and they redeemed him from death. And the nation redeemed Yehonosson, and they didn't kill him. He didn't die. So here is like a sort of happy end to the story. Right? There was someone who violated a cherem, right? And they were going to kill him, and in the end, instead of killing him, they didn't kill him in the end. What did they do? According to the Medrash over here, they brought a Korban Olah. Because they said, no, he didn't really violate the cherem, it was V'shegeg, so you bring a Korban Olah. Now, Rav Chaim Falachi asked, I think it's a shtickle obvious question. He says, what do you mean? Rav Chaim Falachi asks, what do you mean? We don't find anywhere in the Torah that you bring a Korban Olah when you do a shegeg. When you make a Korban Chatas, a Korban Chatas is if you do one of the 36 averas that if you did it on purpose, you get kares, first mission Mesopotamian krisus. So if you do it b'shegeg by mistake, so then you bring a Korban Chatas. Right? But when do you bring a Korban Olah? You don't bring an Olah for doing a shegeg. You bring a Korban Olah. An Olah is a daroin. It's a special present to Hashem. You do it of your own volition, or you do it voluntarily. So what's the idea of the?
Is that chatas eaten by people?
What? Chatas is eaten by a kohen. Yeah.
Oh, by the kohen.
The oila is completely burnt.
To find a similarity between the oil that's not eaten and the chatas eaten.
There is a type of chatas that's not eaten. There are types of chatas that aren't eaten, but yeah. So the Rav Chaim Falachi says like this: that we do find a different idea. The oila is mechaper on. There's a Gemara that says that oila is mechaper on bittul mitzvah's essay, failing to fulfill a positive commandment. So you bring an oila for that. You're not obligated to bring it. You could bring it if you want. The Gemara in Zvachah Vav Zion, something like that. There's a Targum Yehonosson, and also I think the Medrash says that you bring an oila to be mechaper on hirhure avera, thoughts of sin. So Rav Chaim Falachi wants to say that over here it was a shogeg that was a mistake, but it wasn't like a regular he made a mistake. It was the type of mistake that's closer to like mamash oinus. Like he mamash didn't know about it. Like why should you expect him to think that they made a gzeh that you're not allowed to eat? So, what was the havamid of a It's not called a shogeg. It's even a lower. It's even a lower degree than shogeg. Again, misasek or something like that. So Rav Chaim Falachi says they treated it at best as like hirhure avera, like thoughts of avera, fleeting thoughts of doing an avera. So for that they brought the Korban Olah. But etzem that he was chayiv a Korban Olah, we don't find that you're chayiv a Korban Olah for doing any shegeg. Okay, the Ramban wants to say that it's like a oila because he should have realized that nobody else was eating, so why are you eating? Okay, I don't know how much of a sign that is. There's a Ramban in Mishpatei Cherem. You should have realized that no one else was eating, so that's why it's called a shegeg. I don't know. Right, so the Ramban in his Kuntrus Mishpatei Cherem again, he also discusses this story, and he brings down again that this was a cherem that the king was able to impose upon the masses that you're not allowed to eat during this battle or whatever. And then he asks, okay, so how come in the end of the day when Yehonosson ate, so they didn't put him to death? So he brings two answers. The second answer is what our medrash says. Oh, the people said, oh, he's shegeg, so he's okay. So only b'mezid would he be put to death, and not a shegeg for violating the cherem. Yeah. So the other pshat the Ramban says is that a chiddush in the halacha of cherem. Says that when you make a cherem, when the people, let's say the melech or the sanhedrin makes a cherem, so the same person that made the cherem, he could be moichel the cherem. So if I say, okay, nobody is allowed to eat such and such, and then someone violates it and he eats it, so I could say, okay, it's okay, I'll let you eat it, or whatever, something like that. I could forego the authority of putting a cherem on you. And then that'll pater you from getting punished. So over here, it's not clear exactly how he explains it. It could be over here. What happened is that Shaul HaMelech made the cherem, and I think maybe he would understand that the whole power of a king to make a cherem only comes from the fact that he's represents the consensus of the people. Right? A king represents the consensus of the people, and then the people said, "No, don't kill Yehonosson. We're mochel." So then they didn't put him to death. That's what it seems like. From if you want to put together what the Ramban is saying with what our medrash is saying, that it's coming from the people. But maybe you would say that because it certainly doesn't sound like it's coming from Shaul, because Shaul was ready to kill him, right?
Was he only chayav because he was over on the cherem, or because Shaul almost said had a shvua that he would kill the person that was either over what he thought was over on the cherem. He wasn't over on the cherem, but Shaul sort of said the punishment. Therefore, he fit into the punishment. You see what
it would say that it seemed that the punishment. It would say that the punishment was part of the cherem. That's what it seems like.
So Shaul didn't have to say anything.
Right.
That I will kill whoever's over.
Right.
With my own son. That didn't matter at all. It's just.
It could be it's also implicit in the cherem, because if it's a cherem that the king says, so the punishment for violating what the king says is morid b'malchus, that you could be put to death. Actually, it's interesting, now that you're mentioning it, the Rambam writes that the punishment for morid b'malchus is that the king can kill you, but only with saif, only by killing him with a sword. And there's a kasha they asked on the Rambam that where does the Rambam get this from? That it's only with the sword, like if the king could put you to death. So like it's a dinner, the king can put you to death however he wants. Why is it only with saif? So I'm just thinking now that like we have the story over here. What was the story? The story is that Shaul HaMelech pulled out his sword. He was ready to kill him. So the only this source over here, you see like sort of like the Rambam that he was ready to kill him dafka with the sword. Yeah, it's not a source that it's only with the sword. But okay, so that's the first story, the story of Shaul and Yehonosson. Now the second story about cherem for tonight. Says the Medrash. What?
The cherem, like 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the cherem on Yosef's.
Right. So from that, we went on a tangent about cherems in general, different stories of cherem. Yeah. Hakusim, the Kuthians, Eina nechshavin l'goy meshivim umais. They're not considered. This is sort of a background to the story of the cherem, which is going to be a little bit later. The Kusim are not considered. Eina nechshavin l'goy meshivim umais. They're not considered a nation from amongst the 70 nations. Like we spoke about in Perek Chav Daled, that by the Dor HaPalaga, so Hashem split the world into 70 nations, right? So there's like 70 different nations. So the Kusim are not one of those 70 nations. Rather, the Kusim are something else. We're going to give you now the background of who are the Kusim. Ella miyeser chamisha goyim chashuvim lamelech. Rather, they're a conglomerate of 5 other nations that were chashuv to the king, meaning the king of Ashur. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, "Vayavim melech Ashur mibavel mikusa v'gaimer." Basically, the story goes that in Sefer Malachim Beis, Perek Yud Zayin, it talks about how the king of Ashur came and defeated Malchus Yisrael, the northern kingdom of Eretz Yisrael, Malchus Yisrael, and took the 10 tribes into Galus. and displaced them and replaced them with people from all kinds of other nations, mostly from Mesopotamia, from Bavel, that area, Bavel, Ashur, that area over there between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. I didn't bring my map with me. So the Mishnah, the pasuk over there brings about 5 different nations that he brought in to replace the people that lived in Malchus Yisrael. He added another 4 besides those 5. And altogether there were 9 different nations. Shenemar, Daina, Varfrachasia, etc. All these different nations. I forgot to read it like this. The Girsa of the Radal, which I think makes more sense, was Hakusim ena nachshavim l'goyim mishivim u'umois ela miyeser chamisha goyim shishava melech Ashur, that the king of Ashur had captured. I don't know why it says goyim chashuvim lamelech. It makes more sense. It says shishava melech Ashur. Shenamar, and it brings the psukim. When Bnei Yisrael, the people, the Jews in the Malchus Yisrael, were exiled from their place in Shomron. Shomron was the capital of Malchus Yisrael. It was originally built by Omri, the father of Achav. It's in Shevet Binyamin. Right? We have Yehuda in the Shomron, the West Bank. So that's Be'erich, that area. Not in Binyamin, in Ephraim, sorry. Shalach HaMelech Es Avodav V'hoishiv Eisam B'Shomron L'halis Mas L'Malchus. So the king of Ashur sent these servants to put these people from these 5 or 9 different nations there in the Shomron so that he could be able to collect taxes from them. Psukim report in Melachim Beis over there. Psukim report that these 5 nations or 9 nations, whatever, when they came from their hometowns to live in Shomron in Eretz Yisrael, so they brought with them their own national avodah zaras. Each nation brought their own avodah zaras, and they continued worshiping their own avodah zaras. The Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Samach Gimel Amud Beis explains to us what were these avodah zaras. So the Gemara says like this: Anshe Bavel asu es sukkos b'nais. The people from Bavel that Ashur brought in, so they made their avodah zarah called sukkos b'nais. The Gemara says, what is that? Tarnagailis. It's a chicken, a hen. People of Kus, the people from the city Kus, they made their avodah zarah called Nergal. Kus is like, I guess, for some reason the Gemara always assumes that, or for some reason that's the assumption, that the people of Kus were the main people of these 5 nations. That's why collectively they're called Kusim, even though Kus is only one of those 5 names. The people of Kus made an avodah zarah called Nergal, which we actually know that Nergal is the name of the Babylonian god of the underworld. We know that from archaeology, whatever. But the Gemara says, what's Nergal? It's a tarnagol, which is a chicken. There's a Yerushalmi, I mentioned this probably a few months ago now. The Yerushalmi says that what's Nergal? Nergal is the form of the foot of Yaakov Avinu. They worship the foot of Yaakov Avinu because they believe that could bring them bracha. I don't know if you remember that I mentioned that. V'anshe Chamas, the people of Chamas made an avodah zarah called Ashima. Well, what's Hamas? Hamas could be is a city in Syria called Homs. If you follow the news, it's sometimes in the news. Ashima. They made their avodah zarah called Ashima. What's Ashima? The Gemara says it's a bald goat. There's a very interesting thing. The Ibn Ezra in his introduction to Megillas, in his commentary to Megillas Esther, in the introduction, so he writes about the Kusim, that the Kusim took a Sefer Torah and they erased every time it says Hashem's name, and instead of saying Yud Kei Vav Kei, they wrote the name Ashima, because the Kusim worshipped avodah zarah. We'll speak about it in a few minutes. We'll see that the Kusim were of the avodah zarah. So they erased Hashem's name and they wrote Ashima. So I was reading one of these articles written by contemporary Kusi Samaritan scholars, and they said that no, that's not really what happened. Really, what happened is that just like the Jews, they don't refer to Hashem as Yud Kei Vav Kei. We refer to him as Hashem, the name, right? So the Kusim, who basically spoke like Aramaic, so they called Hashem like Shema, which means the name, the same idea. So because of that came the rumor that because they referred to Hashem as Shema, the name, so because of that came the rumor that they replaced Hashem's name with the word Ashima, which is similar to the word of the name in Aramaic. Maybe yeah, maybe no, I don't know. Doesn't sound so good. The next nation, the Avim, made two avodah zaras called Nivchan or Nivchaz and Tartak, which the Gemara says those are a dog and a donkey. And the from the Chanami.
Just to explain that that's the name.
They're apologetics. No,
call it like whatever. So I have to translate the whole Torah because they didn't know. They didn't know because it was written in Lashon HaKodesh and they had to translate it into Aramaic.
Right.
To have to every word.
Yeah. Hasparvim. So then we had the Avim made Nivchan and Tartak, which are a dog and a donkey. Sparvim, they worship, they burnt their sons in fire in honor of Adar Melech and Ana Melech, which the Gemara says is a mule and a horse, like an avodah zarah in the form of a mule and a horse. So the Gemara brings there's other explanations, also different Rishonim and whatever, but that's more or less, these are the 5 different nations that came in. And they what? Animals. Yeah, that's what it seems.
Animal form.
So they came to Eretz Yisrael. They were resettled in the area of Malchus Yisrael, and they were continuing to worship their avodah zaras. So Hashem sent them a punishment. Shilach behemes harayos. Hashem sent upon them lions. This is explicit in the Pesukim. And the lions were killing these people. Shinamar says the pasuk Vayihi b'tchilas shivtam sham v'gaimer. The lions came and started killing these people or whatever. Shalchu v'amru. The reason, of course, the reason behind it is because Eretz Yisrael is a special holy land, and the holy land cannot tolerate such abhorrent acts as avodah zarah, abominable things like avodah zarah. So the land itself, the teva of Eretz Yisrael, was trying to get rid of these people from within its midst. I think it's the Kuzari who points out that in Malchus Yisrael, the Jews that were there beforehand, we don't find that lions came and attacked them. Because even though the Pesukim seem to criticize them for doing avodah zarah, it could be some of those criticisms are somewhat exaggerated, just that we have higher expectations of Jews or whatever. But it wasn't that it wasn't like as bad as what these people are doing. So lions didn't come and attack them. Yeah, well, the they got kicked out of their land, which could be as worse than lions attacking them. I don't know. So these people went and they sent to the king of Bavel. I'm not sure why they sent to the king of Bavel. Maybe they should have sent to the king of Ashur, but maybe that's what it means. Adinenu HaMelech, our master the king. Ha'aretz sheshalachtaну aleha, the land to which you have sent us upon, eino mekabeles esanu, it's not receiving us properly. Ki nisharna ma'maharbe, because only a little bit of us have remained, because we're getting killed out by these lions. So the king didn't know what to do. Shalach HaMelech v'kara l'chol ziknei Yisrael. The king sent forth and he called all the elders of Bnei Yisrael. And he said to them, all these years that you lived on your land, the wild animals of the field did not kill your children. And now the land is not receiving these new inhabitants. What's up with that? What are we supposed to do? What can you advise us? He asked the Jewish elders. Amrulay, they said to him, Davar shel Eitzah, a matter of advice. Ulay yashiv isam la'artzam. This is 2 Girsayos over here. Ulay yashiv isam la'artzam. Maybe he will return them to their land, meaning the Jewish Ziknei Yisrael are going to give advice to the king of Bavel or Ashur, because they think that he's not going to want to follow this advice, and instead of following this advice, he's going to rather return them to their land, and then maybe be able to come back. Or maybe the other girsa is Ulay Yashiv Isanu. Maybe he'll return us. Meaning maybe if we give him good advice, so he'll like us so much and he'll let us go back to Eretz Yisrael. 2 different girsas, exactly what was their rationale for giving this advice. They said, our master the king, that land, the land of Eretz Yisrael, cannot receive a nation which is not circumcised. Or another guess is HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not receive them in his land if they're uncircumcised, so you have to circumcise them. Amar lahem, so the king said to them, Tenu mekem shnayim v'yelchu v'yamulu oisam v'lamdum sefer Torah. So fine. So give me two of your people, two of the Chachmei Ziknei Yisrael, and they will go and they'll circumcise these goyim that were put into Eretz Yisrael, and they'll teach them Sefer Torah, and then the land will be able to hold these kusim, these 5 nations. But and there's no arguing with what the king says. Go and do it. It's an interesting thing. The Radal points out that if you look in the lashon of the Psukim, so in the Psukim it says that they said we should send Echad HaKohanim, one of the Kohanim. So what does that mean, Echad HaKohanim? Here we're saying that there's 2 people. I mean, the Medrash is going to say who were these 2 people exactly, but it says 2 people in the Medrash, and the pasuk says 1 person. So Radal says maybe he'll say that one was a Kohen, Echad HaKohanim, one was a Kohen, and one was like a Yisrael who was like supporting him. Or one was like the main teacher, and the other one was like a substitute in case something would happen to the first one or something like that. Fine. Agav, what was I going to say over here? The Barbanel on the Psukim over there, he learns the Psukim. He learns it differently. The Echad HaKohanim doesn't mean like one of the Ziknei Yisrael, who like a Talmud Chacham or whatever. Echad HaKohanim means one of the original priests of Avodah Zarah that lived in Malchus Yisrael beforehand. So he's just teaching them to do a different type of Avodah Zarah, not that he's teaching them actual Torah. Not like this Medrash over here. Fine. So who are these 2 people? B'shalchlas Rabbi. What? That is the Barbanel. I think Malbim also says it over there. B'shalchlas Rabbi Dustai, Rabbi Zechariah, and Maloisam. So who are these 2 people? They sent Rabbi Dustai and Rabbi Zechariah, and these 2 people circumcised those goyim. And they taught these kusim the Sefer Torah. They taught them the Torah, Chumash, at least maybe in Ksav Trikun, which the Radal says is Ksav Ivri. I spoke about that in my book in Appendix A. And they were crying as they were doing this because they realized that like we're educating these kusim about Yiddishkeit, but really these kusim are going to make a lot of trouble for Bnei Yisrael in the future. They're going to claim to be the real Jews, etc., and it's mamish going to make tsaras in the future. But that's what they were doing. There's interesting ha'ara over here. The Radal points this out. I also saw that in Seder Aderis, in Chelik Bey's Erech Rabbi Dustoi, he also points this out. What were the names of the 2 people? Rabbi Dustoi and Rabbi Zechariah. Right? Or the Medrash Tanchuma that the Radal brings says Rabbi Dustoi, Rabbi Yanai, and Rabbi Sabia. Right? The Nekuda is that the names of these people was Rebbe. Now, let's see if we can figure this out. When is the first time in history that the term Rebbe is used to describe somebody? Who was the first person called Rebbe? No, he was called Rebbe, like Stam Rebbe. But I'm talking about Rebbe as a title.
Rebbe Eliezer.
Rebbe Eliezer, fine. Who's Rebbe Eliezer's Rebbe? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Fine. Okay, who was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's Rebbe?
No.
Who's his Rebbe?
Hillel and Shammai.
Right? Who's Hillel's? Before.
Hillel and Shammai. Okay.
But Hillel and Shammai weren't called Rebbe, right?
No, they weren't.
So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the first person who was called Rebbe, right?
What about the other Talmidim?
What?
What about the other Hillel's Talmidim?
Who? Hillel.
Yeah. No.
Oh, who? Hillel's Talmidim? Who are Hillel's Talmidim? Yehonosson ben Uziel? Yehonosson ben Uziel is not called Rebbe.
I know.
Yeah.
There's another, a few other guys, we just don't know about them. Just I know that Yehonosson ben Uziel was
the top one.
Yeah, the top one, and the guy
was the Shachas one. That's the Gemara says. Yeah. You could repeat it. The Gemara says. Hillel had 80 Talmidim, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the Shachas one, and Yehonosson ben Uziel was the top one. Well, Titus also. Yeah. So the first time that the term Rebbe is used to describe somebody is in the time of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Now Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, as we know from the Gemaras of Tisha B'Av and Gittin, he lived at the time of the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. Now we're talking about something that happened about 1,000 years earlier. I don't know, 1,000 years earlier, but a long time, close to 800 years earlier, right? Because this is like in the middle of Bayis Rishon.
Sure, there's nothing in the Chumash. Like, I don't know. Like you go to a Rav or something like that.
No, nobody. I don't know of
I
anyone.
don't know. Yeshua referring to Moshe Rabbeinu.
Not for sure. Not explicitly in Tanakh.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. The Seder Deres points out this thing that like it's funny that the Medrash calls them Rebbe Dustay and Rebbe Zachariah, but like the term Rebbe is sort of anachronistic over here because it didn't come in play or opposite of.
Why?
What?
Yeah,
Because they're called Rebbe Dustay and Rebbe Zachariah, but the term Rebbe didn't exist yet.
Sure. What are we talking about? Doesn't go.
These are the people that taught the Kusim Torah. And this is talking about even before the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. This is by the exile of the 10 tribes.
Interesting.
It's also
they weren't ready like Rabbi Yochanan and Lazar, right? They were a Ram in the yeshiva, and they were sent. They weren't the greatest of the generation. They were the ones
I don't know.
who had to go teach.
You said I didn't say that.
They're called Rebbe's at that time. That's what a Rebbe was at that time.
You said that. I didn't say
There are
that.
Rebbe's today.
I hear.
But they're not like Rebbe Yochanan and Zaka. That has a.
What about Shem and
They had probably had Rebbe's teaching in their.
In their yeshiva.
Why they have the Tziv?
Did they get paid?
Not well.
Not well. That's old minig. So the Seder Deres points out this
You
question.
get emails from the rabbis and or somebody else trying to get money from the alumni.
Okay. It's also I could be this is just like my problem. I don't know if anyone else is bothered by this, but Dustoy, I'm pretty sure is like a Greek name. It doesn't sound. Dustoy is. Yeah. So it's like it's like a name that like sort of like came into use like later that's being projected on something that happened earlier. Okay, I don't know. If it's a Kabbalah, it's a Kabbalah. You know, tradition is tradition. Especially his name is Rabbi Dustoy Rabbi Yanai, like the Tanchuma. It's like Yanai is for sure. It's a Greek name. It's mamish. Possibly even named after the same Greek god that the month of January or June is named after. Yanai, June, January, I don't know. Fine. And these 5 nations, they went in the statutes of the Torah and in the statutes of their gods. As Hashem hayu yireim, Hashem they would fear, but their gods they would worship. So they were still continuing their idolatry. When Ezra, Zerubbabel, and Yeshua ben Tzadok, who was the Kohen Gadol, came up from Bavel, and they began to build the second Beit HaMikdash, etc. The Shemronim came to fight against Bnei Yisrael who were coming up from Bavel back to Eretz Yisrael to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. 180,000 Shomronim came to fight Bnei Yisrael. They're called Shomronim by the Medrash. V'chi Shomronim hayu? Were they really Shomronim? V'halei Kusim hayu? Weren't they really Kusim? Because that's really their place of origin. They came from Kusa and whatever other cities, Bavel and Kusa and Avim and Sepharvim and whatever the other places we said. So why are they called Shomronim? El Shem Ha'ir Shomron Nikru Shomronim. Rather, they're called Shomronim because they were resettled in the city or around the city of Shomron. That's why they're called Shomronim. Or in English, they're called Samaritans. You know, in the New Testament they talk about the Good Samaritan. So we always talk about the Bad Samaritans.
Yeah, that's
the Bad Samaritans.
I'm just thinking about it because there's a road from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea.
Right, so there's a hotel called the Good Samaritan.
You have a spot there or whatever. I think it's an archaeological.
No, it's a hotel. It's a hotel.
Hotel?
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. It says
Good Samaritan.
It says Good Samaritan, and there's probably what's it called? What's the cross?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something like that. It's like Good Samaritan. We're talking about the bad one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a hotel. I didn't know.
Al Kolponim. Yeah. So these good, quote unquote, good Samaritans, they came to fight the Jews who were coming up to rebuild the Beit Hamikdash. Come and let's gather together in the villages. They wanted to go kill Nehemiah. Nehemiah was the leader of Yerushalayim. So yeah, they were very good because they wanted to kill Nehemiah, right? Good Samaritans, bad Samaritans. And also they stopped the Melachas Shamayim, the work of the heaven, meaning the construction of the Beit Hamikdash. They stopped it for 2 years. Right? They sent a letter to Achashverosh that the Jews are planning to rebel or whatever, and because of that, Achashverosh stopped the construction of the Beit Hamikdash for 2 years. V'haya ad shnas hayovel, and it was until the year of the Yovel that they weren't able to continue building the Beit Hamikdash. The Radal says it's a mistake because there's a Gemara that says. The Gemara says that. Okay, whatever. The Radal says it's a mistake. It can't be that the Beit Hamikdash was finished being built in the year of the Yovel. You see the Cheshbon over there in Ois Kuf Samech in the Radal. Fine. So these Kusim are making trouble. Me'asa Ezra Zerubbabel ben Shaltiel Yeshua ben Yitzchak. So what did Ezra Zerubbabel and Yeshua ben Yitzchak do to counter the efforts of the Kusim? Kibsus Kol Kahal El Heichal Hashem. They gathered the whole nation into the Heichal Hashem, the sanctuary of Hashem. Possibly it means the Beit Hamikdash. And they took 300 Kohanim, Ushleish Me'ez Tinokes, and 300 children, Ushleish Me'ez Shofars, and 300 Shofars, Ushleish Me'ez Sifrei Torah B'yadam, and 300 Sifrei Torah in their hands. V'ayutoikin halaviyim, and they blew the shofars. V'halaviyim misharim u'mezamim, and the Levium were singing and playing musical instruments. U'menadin as a kusim, beside shema mefarish, and they excommunicated the Kusim with the secret of the name of the ineffable name of Hashem, and with the writing that's written on the luchos of the cherem based in ha'elyon, and with a cherem of the based in ha'elyon of a cherem based in ha'tachton, with the excommunication from the Beis Din Elyon, meaning in Shemayim, and the Beis Din Atachton, the earthly Beis Din, and they said, "Shelo yochel adam Yisrael pas kusi ad olam," that a Jew from Yisrael should not eat the bread of a kusi forever. Says the Medrash, "Mekan omru kol oichel pas kusi ki'ilu oichel besar chazir." From here we say that anyone who eats the bread of a kusi, it's ki'ilu, it's as if he ate the meat of a pig meat. And the Bad Samaritans says it's lav dafka mamish as if you ate pig meat, because like if you eat from pig, so you're chayiv, you get malchus because it's a deraisa. Here you don't get malchus, you get malchus mardus, which is a different darga. It's also lashes, but it's a more lenient type of lashes, whatever. So you get punished, but it's not mamish the exact same thing. But the point is that just like eating basar chazir is aser, so these rabbanim, they made a cherem together, a communal cherem, that eating from a pas kusi is also aser. Adam Kusi, and they made a takana that an Adam Kusi, a person who's a Samaritan, cannot become a ger. Interestingly, in Mesachas Kusim, which is one of the Mesachas Katanas printed in the back of Mesachas Avodah Zarah, it talks about when you could be Megayer a Kusi. What exactly does he have to repudiate? What tenets of Kusiism does he have to reject in order for us to be able to be Makabalan? Okay, also the Bais Haggadol mentions that there's a Tesis in Chulin. The Tesis in Chulin brings this medrash over here to tell you that pas kusi is aser. So the Bais Haggadol asks, so why doesn't he bring an explicit Mishnah? The Mishnah Mesachas Shvius, Perek Ches, Mishnah Yud says that you're not allowed to eat pas kusi. So he says it could be that you might misunderstand the pshat in the Mishnah over there, like the Rash did. The Rash is one of the main commentaries on the Mishnah in Zroim. The Rash said that the reason why you're not allowed to eat bread of a kusi is because they don't give meiser. Here the Medrash is saying something stronger, and that's why Tosfos brings dafka this Medrash. Not because they don't give meiser, because there's a special gzera dafka against kusim that you're not allowed to eat their bread.
And the Gemara says that they used to leverage meiser for themselves because they believe that whatever they eat, they have to
right, and then they believe that there's no issue of lefnei yiver.
No. If it's selling to you,
yeah,
you shouldn't buy it. We're really talking about wine there.
Yeah.
And there's no gzera to wine kuti until or beer.
Oh, so that's
No,
going to be
zero.
that's the next step after this medrash.
Oh, sorry.
Ve'ein lahem chelek b'tchias hamesim. The kusim don't have a portion in tchias hamesim. Shem v'lo lachem v'lonu livnes bayis lalikenu loy v'olam hazeh v'loy olam ba. Loy lachem v'lonu livnes bayis lalikenu. You don't have a portion in building a house for Hashem. Not in this world, not in the next world. V'loid. And furthermore, that the kusim are not allowed to have a chelek portion or inheritance in Yerushalayim. And for you, there's no portion or charity in or remembrance in Yerushalayim. So I guess you're not allowed to sell a kusi any property in Yerushalayim. And they sent this, the exact nusach, the exact wording of the cherem to the Jews in Bavel. And they added, I guess the Jews in Bavel maybe added more cherem onto this. And the king Koresh, who was good to the Jews, at least at some point was good to the Jews, he let them build the Beit HaMikdash. He agreed to the cherem. So he agrees to this cherem against the Kusim and takes out the Kusim. That's this stage. So you see over here that they made in the time of before Chazal, in the time of the beginning of the second Beit HaMikdash, they made a cherem against the Kusim. This is a stam cherem. You're not allowed to eat past Kusi. As Rabbi Epstein mentioned, later on they made another cherem against the Kusim that you're not allowed to drink the wine of a Kusi. Why? Because we assume that Kusim are Avdei Avodah Zarah. It's a Gemara in Maseches Chulin that they went and they saw that the Kusim do their worship on the top of Har Grizim, and they found Demus Yoina on Har Grizim. The Chachamim found that there was an image of a dove on top of Har Grizim, and that's what the Kusim were worshipping. So because of that, they made a Gzera against the Kusim. Or Meir made this Gzera. And the Gemara, at least Rashi understands that Rabbi Meir is only the Shitasa because Rabbi Meir is Ve'echish L'miyuta. He's chayshish for a minority. So even though maybe it was only a minority of the Kusim that worshipped this form of a dove, but they still made this Gzera because we were chayshish that every person who's a Kusi, maybe he's from that minority, even though the majority didn't necessarily follow this cult. But then the Gemara says that later on, in the time of Asi, then they really made a Gzera against the Kusim, and they said that the Kusim are not, they halachically lose their status of being Jews b'chlal. They made such a Gzera, a strong Gzera, and it was accepted by Klal Yisrael, and the Kusim were completely taken out of the picture. That's the Gemara in Chulin, Daf Vav, Daf Zayin, something like that. And there's an interesting thing over there, that Taisus in Chulin Daf Zayin, it's also a Das Zikanim in Parshas Vayishlach. It says that before Yaakov Avinu came to Eretz Yisrael, so he said to the people that were with him, he said, Hasiru alehei haneichar mitoichachem, remove from yourselves all the foreign gods that you have with you. The Mefarshim explained that when Yaakov Avinu's sons defeated the city of Shechem, so they took for the spoils, they took all kinds of different pieces of like idols or whatever from Avodah Zarah. Possibly like they want to melt down the metals to use it for other things or whatever. But Yaakov Avinu said, no, we're gonna be machmer and we're gonna get rid of all this stuff and we're gonna bury it. Right? It says that they buried it. Vayit minum tachas ha'ela asherim Shechem. They buried it under a tree that was like next to Shechem. That's where they buried all these Avodah Zarahs. So Taisus, both in Chulin and the Das Zikanim, which is also from Taisus, on that parsha, they say. There's a medrash that says that Avodah Zarah that Yaakov Avinu buried came back to haunt him because that was the Avodah Zarah that the Kusim started worshipping. That was over there. Har Grizim is right next to Shechem. That was the Avodah Zarah that the people, these Kusim that we're talking about here, started worshipping, and then these Kusim made trouble for Klal Yisrael in future generations. Okay, shkoyach.